Hi, welcome to this channel on magnetic energy, technology, principles, applications. This video is about the end of electricity, and this is highly unconventional information. So this is a magnetic, etheric model of the universe that's based on technology, and it's based on revelatory insights, and I am going to share a couple of those with you right now. When we first started on this journey decades ago, we were under the impression, and we assumed, that electricity was the goal of everything that we were doing. So, like many of the free energy researchers that have been around and are around the world today, we really thought what we were going to be doing was taking the units and producing free and clean electricity for the whole world. I mean, that was kind of the end goal of all of it. Like, wow, we can use these devices not only for clean transportation that doesn't have any pollution, but we could also use them to generate clean and free electricity for everyone on the planet. So it was all about electricity. That's where our mindset was. And that's when these higher beings, if you will, and that basically communicated with us, gave us downloads, visitations, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of crazy paranormal stuff, if you will, and really set us going in a different direction, and gave us statements like this one: magnetism is an untapped resource. Electricity alone is no longer going to sustain humanity. And so it was talking about this idea in the future and the changes that are coming, and how, here's another one: the worldwide use of electricity is the primary cause of ozone depletion. When our ozone is gone, life on Earth is finished. However, science holds to the view that electrons are hiding in some grand field somewhere, and there's an unending supply. They also say that the problem with the thinning ozone layer and / ionosphere is a chemical action, thus allowing them to blame chlorofluorocarbons and other chemicals. What they don't know is that all the electrons are formed from the basic structure of the ionosphere. So this idea that we were given these teachings that show that the conventional thinking of electricity and how it's formed and its connection to the ionosphere, its connection to our planet, was way off base, and that electricity is in fact quite detrimental. There's another one: we have created technological monsters on this planet, and we continue to feed them while they kill us. Electricity is destroying the ozone shield, and without that protection, physical life as we know it will end. And I mean, that's interesting, because we're talking about like interdimensional beings, and we're talking about all kinds of extraterrestrial, if you want to call them, and beings that are concerned with not only the state of our life on this planet, but the condition of our planet and how it impacts our local region of the galaxy. Here's another one: the teaching is that all magnetism is a byproduct of electricity, when in fact all electricity is a byproduct of a troubled magnetic field. This was part of a whole teaching about how electricity and its generation is so incompatible with the magnetic resonance of the universe and the magnetic resonance of this planet, and how it's that force and that really distortion and all the different things that you do with a magnetic field to create electricity is not compatible with the universal flow. Here's another one: the worldwide use of electricity is the greatest destructive action of all. And I talked about that in the ionosphere changes video, and that's going to apply also to this video. Here's another statement: electrical fields are incompatible with the entire Earth system, causing numerous problems. We must and we will stop using electricity in the near future. There will be a shift in the Earth's magnetic field that will prevent the generation of electricity. The Earth's new polarity will not allow present generators to gather magnetic molecular structures from the ionosphere to form them into electrons in a controllable manner. So I've talked about this in other videos, how this pole shift is bringing this whole new Earth, new ionosphere, new magnetosphere, new magnetic field, and that the higher you go in voltage, like into kilowatts and megawatts, the more reaction you will create with the interaction of the ionosphere, and it will just blow out everything that's happening. So with the heightened amount of energy around the planet, the new ionosphere, generation of electricity is going to become basically impossible. Now there were a lot of other quotes and stuff, that things that we were given, but this is kind of one of those final nails in the coffin type of quote. By 2030, give or take 1 to 2 years, the production of electricity will stop permanently. And that's, so we're now getting close to that. I mean, it's only what, 8 years away or so. Now, the 1 or 2 years has to do with like the compression and expansion of event sequences. So, depending on how events unfold and what is at stake, like for example, that could be how nuclear power plants are handled. Like, so for example, radioactive material. But and how things are unfolding. There's so many levels of what's unfolding in the earth right now. But so event compression and expansion could take place that could make that timing. So there's a window of timing. There's a lot of variables being tossed around here. But when they're referring to the electricity, the production of electricity, this would be like all of your like coal-fired plants, nuclear plants, hydroelectric. This could be solar and wind fields. Anything that generates a high amount of voltage, however you want to define that, a high amount of power, will essentially not be able to run any longer. And so that's the end of electricity. Now, the huge benefit of that is that humanity has basically no idea of how close we are, if this information that we've given is true, which we have many reasons to believe it is, but that humanity just has no clue on how close we are cutting it to having basically what do you want to call it, events that will take place that will cause extinction for the human race. And so this whole movement, this whole push to get this enlightenment shift quickly and to get through this pole shift quickly, and all of this is all tied together with our technology and nuclear energy, nuclear bombs, explosions, and then electricity. So it's all tied together, and it's all coming into this huge program and this culmination that will get us away from that, stop all electricity, and then switch over to something more like magnetic energy that will then be the dawning of a golden age of civilization, where we will have free energy, magnetic energy, and the ability to formulate, deformulate, reformulate matter, so that there's no longer scarcity of any kind whatsoever. The whole idea of anti-gravity, force fields, all of that type of stuff that I talk about in these videos all comes to fruition at that point. So this is a hugely positive transition, but it's also alarming from our present point of view, because we are very much entangled with electricity right now, which is a massive problem. Now, so one of the things I want to talk about, because people say, well, what else can we do to prepare? And you might want to consider this idea of like low volt technology. So anything that's like relatively low volt. So you could say it's like 50 volts less, that type of thing should be perfectly fine. And so anything that's like solar powered, because if you think about it, if electricity production stops, like comes to a grinding halt, that means that it's going to be, the whole idea of manufacturing is going to be challenging, to say the least. But so like typical batteries, for example, might be in short supply relatively fast. So the idea of having like solar powered, like solar rechargeable batteries and solar powered flashlights, solar powered lanterns, solar powered battery chargers that can recharge your laptops and cell phones and all these things. Now granted, the internet will probably not be nearly what it is right now, but for sure some form of the internet will probably survive, especially as magnetic technology comes online. A new type of internet will come online that is infinitely faster, better, and everything else than our present internet. But in the meantime, there's still some practical use for having a laptop and a cell phone. Even in a survival situation, there may be, there's some use for it. So this idea of like low powered solar charging, any gadgets that are low powered solar powered that can last for years without an electrical grid to support them, I think is probably a fairly smart idea to have some of that around, some of that technology. And of course, your guidance is always paramount to anything that I say on any of these videos. Obviously, your personal guidance, your personal intuition is first and foremost what you should listen to, in my opinion. But I think there is some validity to saying that, stock up on that kind of stuff, including things like food and water and the essentials for survival. But low volt solar powered chargers, there's low volt solar powered generators, like the small emergency panels that only produce so much wattage. And those are great. And in this new ionosphere, those should be perfectly fine. They're not going to attract that much attention from the ionosphere. It's mostly a reaction that takes place, relatively speaking. I mean, the conductors aren't going to really probably overload when there's such low voltage. So, the dawning of the golden age of civilization. I know this is kind of an intense topic, but it's something that probably should get out there, and hopefully we will get prepared as much as possible for the changes coming. And there's a lot between now and then, so a lot of changes happen. If we start to see the manifestation of a new pole in the North Pacific region or something where it's very obvious that a new conventional science will say that new poles are forming. From the magnetic energy model, we're saying that, yes, you could call it's a new vortice of energy. It's a new vortex of energy that's forming that is going to become the new magnetic field around our planet. And when that starts to have tremendous impact or events around the North Pacific region, then I would say it's pretty important to try to prepare at that point. If you are looking for a sign like when should I start preparing, I would say that's a pretty good time to do that, because there could be a lot going on. But if you're compelled to do it right now, that's great. If you're compelled to not prepare at all, that's great too. As long as you're following your guidance, I think that's the most important thing. So anyway, with all of that said, we'll get through this. We'll get through this, right? That's the hope, and that's the belief. So thank you, and I will see you next time.